Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Clara Capano.
And I'm Karissa Adkins.
And we are here to help you gain clarity and boss up to the next level. So are you ready to get real? Hey Karissa, how you doing today?
What's up, girl? What's up? Oh my gosh, I'm actually doing fantastic today.
Yes, me too. I am just so excited. Today we got a hot topic. We are talking about something stinky out there. We're talking about a little bit of BO, aren't we?
I know.
But
I have.
Talk to us.
BO
What does
probably.
BO really stand for here?
BO is all about the burnout, baby.
Burnout, burnout, burnout.
It's the best version of us. No matter who you are, I think we've all experienced some level of burnout. We're going to discuss that today, and what we're really excited to really get into is how can we notice the signs of burnout? Because burnout, unfortunately, we realize it when we're in the thick of it.
Absolutely.
Or we don't realize it at all. We're like, help me, please. So I'm really, really excited, of course, to talk about this topic. This is actually something that you are a master in. You help women overcome burnout. So we're going to, you guys are getting the expert advice, the strategies from a woman who goes out and teaches and preaches this stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm stoked. But first, we have our cocktail of the day. Dion, what do we got going on today?
Hi, ladies. Today, we are going to do a cocktail I call La 77. It's part love and part the year I was born.
Ooh, I like it.
So we're going to start out, and I make this at home. It's a little bit of lavender honey. The honey is from All About the Bees.
I like the name of that, All About the Bees.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all
Gotta
about
love
the
our
bees.
bees.
Next, we're going to use a little bit of fresh squeeze. That's what this guy here's for.
Okay.
A little fresh squeeze lemon juice.
I can get behind that.
And we got a few more ingredients here. We have Saint Germain elderflower liqueur. We're just going to do a very small amount of that to accentuate our florality from the lavender.
I'll have to dedicate this drink to my sister Amy. She loves that.
Now, where do you even find? I've never heard of that one, Dion.
Saint Germain, you can usually find it in any high-end liquor store.
Okay.
So last, we're going to use our Bombay Sapphire East. I don't even know if this is in our market anymore. I got this bottle a few years ago, and it was just kind of hard to find things to do with it. And finally, I was like, I'm going to make a cocktail with it because it has a different set of botanicals, so it doesn't taste like a regular gin.
Okay. So with that, because I'm curious now, so I didn't know if alcohol goes bad. We all have a bar at home probably, and we're like, does it go bad?
Alcohol doesn't necessarily go bad, but it is very sensitive to sunlight. And so you want to keep it in a room temperature place with not a lot of sunlight, because sunlight will change the molecules and make it not be good anymore. Yes, exactly like
So
that.
alcohol can suffer from burnout too.
Oh my gosh!
So we've got to keep our alcohol safe.
If I had a ching ching thing.
All right, ladies, I'm going to shake this for you. So it's important when you shake to really think about a song that you like the most.
So what are
Mine
you thinking
is,
about?
Hey, look, Ma, I made it.
Love it.
So what inspired you to make this drink for us today?
So again, my birthday is in 1977. There's a cocktail that's very similar to this called the French 75. So this is a riff on the French 75. So it's going to be a little bit sweeter, a little more florality, a lot more yumminess. So we're going to go ahead and fill these
Well, the
about
glasses already
halfway.
look like they're for us,
I
so
know. It looks pretty yummy.
they're gorgeous.
Right now as I pour this, I'm thinking about this song called I Should Have Bought You Flowers, and then I realized I got you some nasturtiums to go on the side of the glass. And then we're going to finish this off with a little Moscato. Instead of doing a Prosecco like a French 75 would have, I want this to be a little bit sweeter, a little more florality.
I am very excited
A
about
lot
this.
more yumminess.
I think I might already be in love.
We won't tell your man at home about that. Or maybe we should, and then he can make these for
you. He can
And
get the
so-
recipe on our website.
Yeah.
There we have our La 77, garnished with a lemon zest and a nasturtium. And thank you, ladies. I appreciate you having me on the show as always.
Dion, thank you. Claire, what are we cheersing to today on episode 2?
Today, we are cheersing to our real living question, which is, what is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. All right, cheers, girlfriend. Let's see our reactions on these ones.
Oh my goodness. Love. You
Yes,
guys have got to
so
make this at
good.
home.
You guys.
This is another sipper right here.
And where again? I can't remember where they can grab that recipe.
They can grab it on our website at just livingrealtv.com.
Love it, love it. Okay. All right,
The
you guys,
website may change as the cocktails keep coming. Who knows?
I love it. So, guilty pleasure. I'm going to throw this one back on you first. So as you guys know, we are starting out with our word of the day. And the word or the thought is guilty pleasure. So first, what comes to mind? And then give me the real
All right.
deeds.
So, what is a guilty pleasure and why do we want to bring this in, especially with burnout? We can't take ourselves so seriously. And we're going to talk about that more when we get into some of the tips. But we all have that thing that we sort of keep in the dark, that we go to, but we don't want anyone else to know about. So for me, being that, I talk about strategies for being in control of your business and your life. On the outside, I'm all about productivity and read your business books and do all this. But I'll tell you, when I'm alone,
What is
I am binge watching Law and Order. I love crime shows like Dateline. I totally know if someone's taking me in a car out to a valley, I know exactly what's coming next. And, I really love to just be able to shut my mind off. I know when I'm on the road, traveling, doing my trainings, when I get home after teaching and training, sometimes I just need to disconnect. My brain cannot think anymore. So I just love being able to just sort of escape. So what is something you do to kind of help you escape?
Well, if I had to just give you a TV show, it would be Hoarders, honestly. I am a purger. It's a way that I cope with things. So I'm kind of the opposite, but I do love watching Hoarders, as weird as that one is. But when I think guilty pleasure, as someone who's like a recovering, emotional eater, an addict of food, I automatically go to food. And for me, it's my guilty pleasure. It's something that's now become a tradition. So when I travel, okay, 2 things, I'm not gonna lie. Cool Ranch Doritos with mustard.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Regular
I
mustard,
know.
Dijon mustard?
Regular,
Okay.
like plain 97-cent mustard. So when I'm at a gas station, you can always find my guilty pleasure in chip aisle, and then by the hot dogs is where the mustard, obviously. So that's number 1. And then number 2 is gummy worms. The sour and sweet ones. So when I travel, it's just kind of like a thing. Whether I eat them or not, I go and buy a bag of gummy worms. And I have maybe 1 or 2, but it's just my go-to thing. I love it. And I can literally do really good if they're not open. But the minute I smell Cool Ranch Doritos, my mouth waters.
See,
Guilty pleasure.
mine is Wheat Thins. I cannot bring Wheat Thins into my house because I will be, and the box will be closed, but I hear them, eat me, please eat me. And I can't just have 1 or 2. The box is gone,
So Wheat Thins.
And Law and Order. I'll be sitting there watching Law and Order with my hand in the Wheat Thin box.
So really quick, because I love food. So Wheat Thins, do you just eat them plain, or are you like a dipper?
Oh,
do
no,
you have to
I'm
have,
plain.
Okay, all right.
I just
Why
wanna
didn't get
enjoy-
any Wheat Thins for us?
so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. So now that we know our guilty pleasures again, I'm sure all of you have them. Go ahead and write us in and tell us what your guilty pleasures are too, so that we can enjoy the beauty of the guilt together. But let's go ahead and dive back in. Burnout. As mentioned, this is sort of an area that I know and love only because I've lived it. I mentioned in our first episode the idea that I have had several breakdowns, and so this has been sort of an area that I have thankfully learned from, even though it starts to creep in at times. So I really think for women especially, when we talk about getting real, we have to talk about burnout because all of us are going to face it at one time or another.
Yeah, I do believe that. And I believe that every burnout phase can be different, but they all, I think, still have similar commonalities. But like as a child, I probably faced burnout as an athlete, right? Like go, go, go. And we didn't even think about like your normal life as an 8-year-old. And then as a teen and burnout, and an adulthood as burnout, and then I'm sure it continues. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because I don't think that you realize you're in the thick of it until you're in it.
Until you're there.
Until you're like, oh, I don't even know how to get out. I'm stuck in this rut, whether it's with health, career, it doesn't matter. And that place of stuckness can suffocate you. Yeah. So I think today's conversation is just super informative, obviously. So let me just dive right in because I'm probably thinking of 1,000 stories that I could tell, but I want to know like your biggest burnout story, like the juicy details. Give it to me.
Well, I'll talk about, get to the last one, which really was the breakthrough. And I have a talk on Amazon Prime's TV show Speak Up, where I talk about, burnout to breakthrough. After my son was born, I had mentioned in an earlier episode that I went back to work right away.
Right.
And I just got back on that hamster wheel, and I just was like, I got everything under control, but behind the scenes, everything was falling down. And there was a moment where I came home at night, and I was working on the phone, doing all these things, putting the dishes away, everything that needed to be done, and Nicholas came up to me, and he just wanted to show me a picture that he had drawn. And I remember saying, oh yeah, mommy's busy right now, I'll look at it in a minute. And with his big brown eyes, he looked up at me and he actually took the phone out of my hand and he said, Mommy, you're not paying attention to me.
And how old was he?
He was 3.5.
3.5, and he could feel that Mama was disconnected.
And I don't want to cry right now, but I mean, those words still cut into me, and he's 16 now, but I remember, after sort of the shock of that wearing off, going up into my room and falling on the floor, crying, and just saying, what have I done here? Because in my chase to be the best mom, to provide, to keep it all together, I was so absent in everything that I was doing. And this was the one relationship that meant the most to me. And I couldn't even be there to look at a picture that he had drawn. And I had a moment. It was that defining moment where I had to say, okay, is this going to be another moment where I'm just like, okay, I'm good, and just call it together.
Shove that down, right?
And just shove it down and get back on it? Or was I going to say, Clara, this has been the 3rd or 4th time you've been here. What's going to change this time? And so I really had to say, this is not going to just be another moment of breakdown. This is going to be my defining moment. And it really caused me to be honest with myself. I had to acknowledge that I was being a crappy mom, that I was being a crappy sibling. I was not being good, to my workmates. I was not being good to my clients because I just was not fully there and fully engaged. I was not showing up being the person that I was telling people I wanted to be.
How did that feel, not being able to be authentic?
It was awful.
In that weird way.
It was awful. And like I said, I think I had been feeling it, but I had been shoving it down so much, just saying, oh, it'll pass. If I can just get through this season, if I can just get through this project.
Words. Oh my God, this buzzer's
never know what the buzzer's going to give you, and I think that, that was my moment for me, where I had to start, doing the change. So what about for you? What was a defining moment for you?
I mentioned this as well in a previous episode, but I think my defining moment is when I realized I had everything that I could have ever wanted, and I still wasn't happy. And that sense of unfulfillment doesn't sit well for me. So there I was, working my corporate job, and it was in marketing and HR. So of course, like us women, we want to climb these ladders. You checked off boxes. I wanted titles because I never had a title. I barely graduated high school, for goodness sakes. So to like that, when I got my first title, right, I felt so important.
Yes.
And I believed that was where my value was. And then I was like, well, if I take on more work, and if I say yes to this project, and they're like, oh, we need someone in HR, Who do you think raised the hand? I'm already got a full-time job in marketing, running a very successful company in that aspect. And then to add the HR piece on, right? So now I'm out in the community, the face of that, and I'm also the glue that's keeping the company together. And so busy from, I can't even say 9 to 5 anymore, because who works those cool hours? Like, it was 7 to 7 for me at that time. I was going to school to become a coach and getting all my certifications. I was trying to be a mom. I was trying to be this wife, this awesome wife. I was trying to volunteer on every board that I could possibly get my hands on, because why? It made me feel important to add another title, another board position. You know, it made me feel important when people saw me out in the community and they're like, Karissa, how are you doing it all?
Exactly.
Those famous words. You know what you're doing, right?
It's like, oh yes, and I am doing this.
Oh,
and
what do you know?
It sort of becomes your identity. You're like, I've made it. I'm successful.
Right.
When everybody
Right.
else can see me doing these things. And it's like we end up doing these things for others, not really for us.
But I think the community saw the successful Karissa, but again, the real relationships that mattered, the hubby, the kids, didn't see me at all, right? And I would come home from work stressed out in that, like, I just wanted to dump, right? Because as HR and marketing, like, I'm second in command. I can't complain to my boss because I, again, feel like, well, if he'll find me weak if I'm crying, or, you know, and like who does that in a man's world in collision? And so I just felt like I was still shoving those things back in, and I would get home and, oh my gosh, my kids would get the worst version. Like, I would yell at them for the shoes not in the cubby, or the one dish in the sink. And then I would feel like I had to still clean the house at the end of the day because that was a coping mechanism. Like, I was all over the place. And I realized, and I was like, I can't do it all. And I didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to get out of it. And I realized, I was like, that makes me either weak, or it's going to be a very defining moment for me.
All right, and I just want to pause for a second. And that's, you know, what it is I think we tell ourselves, if we can't do it all, we are weak. And we, as successful women out there in the world, are trying to prove ourselves. And the last thing we want is to be viewed as somebody that's weak.
Why do you think we think weak is bad?
I think it's society. I think that was something that, you know, has been told, you know, through time. I think it's changing, and I think there are so many beautiful examples now of strong women out there accomplishing, and I think the story is changing. But I think for many years, and, you know, growing up, it's that it was again, and I even know there are many wonderful husbands, fathers, you know, significant others out there, and they pitch in and they help and they do it all. You know, my ex-husband is fantastic, really was there to help out. But at the end of the day, if the kid gets sick, they still call mom first. And so there is something where we have a lot of that guilt and that shame, and I think that we are trying to somehow try to reconcile the two worlds. So we try to keep, you know, taking on more. I don't necessarily have all the answers of why we face it.
We're still figuring it out.
But, you know, I think it's a real thing out there. And, you know, what I know is that burnout is $1 billion industry. And I don't know if you knew this, but there are about 120,000 deaths a year that are equated as of results from burnout. And, you know, companies are spending over $2 billion a year in taking care of their people who are suffering from the effects of burnout. So it's something that we have to start paying attention to because, again, male, female, young, old, everybody's going to face it. And, you know, so it's really about understanding it. It's about recognizing that it is real. And I think it's about putting in some, you know, some strategies to help, you know, work on that. So, you know, and I think that, again, at all ages, again, you mentioned that even as an athlete, you know, I think for kids right now, I think it is so painful to watch on many levels because I think you've got to do good in school. Then you've got to get a job. You've got to play sports and not just one sport. I know so many kids that are in several sports. I know that was me. I also did gymnastics, and it wasn't, I did it at this studio and I did it at this studio, you know, and I think we need to start to look at that because I think, you know, kids need sleep. You know, and I think
but they need downtime and self-care.
They need downtime, and you know, we're going to talk, and I think those are lessons, but when we start training our kids when they're young, that downtime isn't okay, that we shame them for watching cartoons or playing video games. And I get it. There's a certain level where it's a bit excessive. I get that.
I got it.
You know what? Go out and play hide and seek. You know, go and get some downtime, because I don't want my kid to have burnout.
Right. You mentioned a funny story. It kind of brought me right back. Was a gymnast and then a dancer. And I know it's weird because I'm 5 foot tall and you don't see many ballet dancers that short. But a gymnast you do, right? We are built for stocky, short, petite balls of muscle. And I would go from one workout, like one practice to the next. And there I was doing like long, plies. And my dance teacher would come, because in gymnastics, it's rigid, it's sharp, it's right? And in ballet, it's soft and flowy, and she would come and smack my hand. She said, "Girl, we're not at gymnastics anymore." And then I would have to like shake it off and do that. But you are right, like kids these days are feeling it. You know, I'm sure guys are feeling, I would love to get a male's perspective, I'm sure, on that. It would be interesting to kind of pick their brain, because I do feel that, man, if we feel that, they probably feel it too, 100%. But yeah, there I was, and I was like, I'm taking off this cape that I felt made me worthy and made me enough in the world. And it was really hard to do, but I realized that when I take off the cape and I work on me, and I had the mentor at that time, you know, she was like, you don't have to do it all. And she went back to giving me that permission. And she reminded me that the expectations that I was putting on myself were inflicted by me. Right? Like, I feel like that's where burnout comes from. Because my boss, I guarantee he would have not been like, Karissa, you need to be answering emails at all time of night. You need to be networking with everyone. You need to go to every single event in Omaha, right? Like, your face is he did not put that expectation. Yet I brought that on myself. I felt that is what made me worthy. So that was my burnout story of like, I just got to take off the Wonder Woman cape, because I can't do it. I'm going to lose my mind.
And I think, again, you know, changing the way that we look at things in society, you know, 2 weeks of vacation is just not enough vacation time, you know? And I remember, you know, early on in my career, I was working in real estate, and our team leader gave us all a bonus, but she said, you need to specifically spend this on vacation. And I was like, but I have bills to pay. She's like, I don't care. You're going on vacation. I don't need a vacation. She's like, yes, you do. You know, and then I remember, you know, later on when I was in leadership, they changed it and they said, we're not giving you vacation days anymore. If you need a day off, you take a day off. And I think,
you don't find that.
And you don't find that. And
That's
it was such a beautiful thing. It was really weird at first. And, you know, I think so many of us were like, you know, can we really do this? And they said, you know, granted, if you're going to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks, but if you're feeling it, and they said, because we want you to give your best here. And we know that you take calls after hours. And we know that you sometimes come in on the weekends, and they're like, you need to be there. And so I think as leaders, and we are leaders. As a parent, you're a leader. You know, with your friends, you're a leader. So I think it needs to start with us, and we need to make sure that we are setting the stage for understanding that having strategies put into place is acceptable. And the more that we can work with each other to not avoid it, but face it, is really going to help us.
Yes, I would 100% agree. So when we come back, and if you're tuning in next week or coming back for the next episode, I cannot wait, because we're going to talk about the dangers of burnout. Because that, I think, is I see it as a health coach, as a professional. I see that. I'm sure you see it as training leaders, female leaders. And then we're going to definitely talk about those tips, those strategies, because every woman is probably like, that's me. I'm in this place. How do I show up at work and say I need time and not feel weak for it? Oh my gosh. So thank you so much for catching The Living Real. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Clara Capano with Capano Speaking and Training, and I am here to get you clarity. As the strategist for the Smart Woman, I've spent over 20 years working with women in business, helping them to recreate what success looks like for them, to get them off that hamster wheel and to get them into running a purpose-driven business. When you work with me, you're going to find real strategies that are going to help you gain immediate traction in both your personal and professional life. So follow me and find out all you need to get you clarity at claracapano.com.
All right, welcome back, and we are here talking about burnout. So before we get into these strategies, because again, we're here about getting real, so we want to give some real strategies for women out there. But Karissa, what are you seeing as some of maybe the warning signs? What are some of the things we should start paying attention to when we see burnout rearing its ugly head coming
We're in there, right? Well, I work with women all the time that are in burnout, so do you. So we see other people's, but I'm just going to give you mine because I think it's real that way for me. So when I'm in burnout, I will always do a couple of things. My body goes through certain things, and I turn inward, and I'm like, I feel like it's as crazy and opposite as it should be, right? When we're feeling overwhelmed and like we can't get to it all and we're stressed, that should be the sign naturally to ask for help.
Right.
But for some reason we're like, no, take on more. So personally, my body, right, when I am under a crap ton of stress, which honestly I think is like stage 1 before burnout, is you're kind of stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, the to-do list seems ever ending, and you're like, I can't get to it all. Those are like kind of like my signs. But body, right? So our body produces certain chemicals when we are stressed, and those chemicals then release other things to happen. So I know we were talking about food, and I have eczema, and I have all these kind of crazy things, but that is a stress. That is when stress is in my life, very big time, like very present, my skin will start itching. I'll be like, oh my gosh, right? And I don't even realize it. And I used to be embarrassed by it, but now I look at it as like an indicator light. I'm like, okay, something's off.
Right.
Another thing that I do when I'm stressed is I'm an emotional leader. I'm a recovering. And what I mean by that is I'm constantly working on that, right? I'm a recovering workaholic. We are always recovering and shifting and adapting and, finding new strategies. But if I am stressed, I will then tend to want to be like, where are those Doritos at? Where's my snacks? I just want to eat a little bit more. So that's kind of a sign that's like very present. And I think another one is I turn inward and I think I'm all alone. If I just need to crunch these things out, I tend to just then fill my plate with more work because I feel like that's the only thing I can control is my calendar. So I just add more things. So that besides like purging things out the door and decluttering. I mean, those are strategies for me in a sense, but those are my signs. And I think as a coach, I see women that are in the thick of it. They have completely lost the healthy habits. They just let the habits and their self-care and everything else go, and they just focus on that to-do list. And then all of a sudden they found themselves, why am I 10 pounds heavier? Why am I this? Why am I that? Why is my hair falling out? I'm like, it's stress. You're in it. This is burnout, baby. Let's talk about it.
And so many times I wish, it was as simple as with a car where the lights, with the warning lights would go on. For me, I also tend to turn inward. I know that there's those days where I don't want to get out of bed, and all I want to do is just pull the covers up over my head and not face it. That's an indicator for me that, there's something out there I need to face, but I don't want to. Also, I tend to withdraw from my friends and my family. I won't reach out to them as much. They won't see me as much on, social media and as engaging, as it is. And, so really paying attention to those signs.
So that makes me want to ask you this. So knowing that that's your sign, do you take it a step further and say, okay, guys, when you don't see me, will you reach out, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I have started to.
Okay.
And, I think it's really important to do that because it is something that we oftentimes don't pay attention to on our own, and we don't even see it. We don't see that I haven't gotten out of bed in 3 days, or
because you're in it.
Because I'm in bed, or again, starting to ignore myself. I'm not, putting on makeup. I'm doing, calls from home, but I just have my hair pulled back and in my yoga pants, and rather than getting dressed, so when I start to just kind of disconnect and, not show up as the best version of myself, so I have asked a few people close enough to me who I trust to say, you know what, I just want you to know but I tell them that, and they have permission to say, hey, I just, want to know this. My sisters check in on me. Hey, we haven't heard from you in a couple of days. Is everything okay? Yeah. So I think it's really important to first know it for yourself, but then also make those closest to you aware of it as well.
Absolutely. And I think, and you don't need everyone holding you accountable, but it's that extra level, that depth of, I don't want to show up in this life feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed out, feeling like I'm alone. So I give you permission to kind of call me on my BS. Like when I am not acting, authentic and being myself, that's when please reach out. Right. And I think that's why we get along so well, is because like we can call each other out on that.
Absolutely.
And say, Clara, I have missed the gym for 3 days. What is wrong with me? Or if you're not seeing a post, because people are so robotic, like, I get up every day. So if I wasn't tagging myself in a fitness post for a week, I would hope someone would call me and say, are you alive?
I know.
Like,
what's going on?
Okay?
Absolutely.
I love that. So what do you think are the big dangers? So if you're in it and you're not, like, it's so hard, you have no one to kind of pull you out. You don't even recognize it. You said earlier in the truck, you're just too close to that pain. Right. And when we're too close to our own pain, it's hard to recognize it. So what do you think the dangers would be for someone who's like chronically burnt out?
Maybe some like strategies that they can use?
No,
or
like what are like the bigger, like extreme,
extreme ones.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think, depression and anxiety, you talked a lot about how it can manifest in your health. I believe, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I do believe in the mind-body connection. And when you are on burnout, again, your adrenal glands are going to be, going at high speed. And, I know for me, when I was young, when I was in my teenage years, it manifested in illness. My burnout led me to get tonsillitis, which led me to get Epstein-Barr, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, which then was what kind of spurred my anorexia. So, you can kind of see how all these things go. So again, it could manifest again in things like autoimmune disorders, many things like that. It could manifest in divorce or breakups. I know that a big part of my burnout definitely led to, the fallout of my marriage. It can lead to disconnecting from your friends and having them feel like you don't care. You could lose your job. I mean, there were times where my superior had to call me in and say, what's going on here? Because you're not working at the level, and basically, if you don't get your poop in a group, we're going to have to separate ways. So I think, some of the dangers are much bigger, and we need to stop saying, okay, let's just put our big girl pants on. Let's just let it pass. We need to start really, addressing it. And that's why, I've really tried to bring in some simple strategies to help women, face it and be able to go forward.
Yeah, and I would just add, I want to go back to that number that you told me about at the beginning, 120,000. Okay, so like we think it's just, tomorrow will be a different day. It's not, unless you change, right? You're always going to be living in this. And when you said mental, like all of these, when it starts affecting your mental ability, your physical health, and then the stress and then the weight, it's no wonder we get to 120,000 deaths a year because of.
And think about the rise of suicide, especially in adolescence, because again, when you're on that hamster wheel, you can't think clearly. No. Your brain isn't processing the way that it needs to process. Right. And you're not going to make good decisions, and you're not going to be able to see a way out. Right. So the idea is you've got to start paying attention when the indicator light goes on, because it could be too late. So
you would say, like, step one, if someone's watching, is figure out what your indicators are. Yeah. What are the lights that are flashing bright that you've been ignoring forever? You guys write that down. If you're like, how do I get out? The first step is just knowing that you're in it, girlfriend, right? Like, absolutely. What are my signs? What are the symptoms that the universe and my body is telling me? All right, my favorite part. Tips, strategies. All right. How can women, once they've recognized it, be aware of their stuff, they're aware of it, that it's present in their life, how can they now get out? Okay. Tips. So let's keep this simple and easy. Yeah. Because it really is, once you acknowledge it and once you are aware of it, it actually is pretty easy to put some strategies and steps in place to help you snap out of it. Gotcha. The first thing is living a life of gratitude. And that sounds, again, kind of sure what it is, but the impact of gratitude. And when we look at the brain, the brain is pretty remarkable. And one of the things that I've learned about the brain is that it cannot hold two conflicting thoughts. So it cannot be in abundance and scarcity. Right. It cannot be in happiness or sadness. So I have trained myself, and I encourage a lot of the women that I work with to do what I call bookend their days. Bookend. With gratitude. So what we do is we wake up in the morning and we identify what are 3 things that we are grateful for. And yes, it could be good, big things like our family, our health, but sometimes it's, I'm grateful that I had a good night's sleep, or, I'm grateful for my pillow, or whatever it may be. Sometimes it's in those small things.
Because when we train our brains to focus on the abundance that is in front of us, it's really hard to go into the day with a negative outlook.
It is.
Because even in the midst of it, there's always beauty in front of us.
Love that.
Then we go through our day, and it goes to hell in a handbasket, and it's crazy.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. And then we get home at the end of the day, and normally what we do is we come back and we're like, ugh, what didn't I get done today? Well, again, that's negative.
Yeah.
So what we wanna do is, before we go to bed, just like we start our days with gratitude, we wanna end our days with gratitude by asking ourselves, what are 3 great things that happened today? What are 3 things that I am grateful that happened today? Because if we can bookend our days, because our brains are also most susceptible and open to thought the first 20 minutes of the day and the last 20 minutes of the day. So we wanna make sure that we're feeding it with gratitude and positivity.
Okay. And I would also probably think that if you're ending like your night, right there sitting thinking about all the just a couple grateful things that you did, I bet you go to bed with a more positive thought process. Therefore, our subconscious is a little bit happier when you go to bed.
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. Well, I don't do mine. Like if I had to talk about my own gratitude practice, I don't do the waking up thing because I'm just like, wake up, get to the gym, and I feel amazing anyways. But what I do, it's a ritual at the end of my work day. It kind of seals in the work because it's hard for a lot of people to just cut the work off, right? I'm like, at 5 o'clock, I'm done. I want to be disconnected from work. I don't want to be the coach. I don't want to be the speaker anymore. I just want to be a mom and a wife and like do my own stuff. So at the end of the day, it's about 4:30. It's kind of, I sit down, I look at everything that I've accomplished today, the bigs, the littles, the smalls. It doesn't matter if it's a brand new client that I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Or it's, I didn't spill coffee on myself today. Like, what up? Like that's, I just sit and I write, you know, and it started out in like a journal and then it went to a whiteboard because I love visually seeing them at the end of the day and at the end of the month. So I just sit and identify. I don't really get into the nitty gritty about it in my journal because I feel like that's the extra time that I don't take there, but I take it somewhere else. And I'm excited to tell you about this one. So I at least identify them. And then at dinner, we make it a thing. My daughter's like, so what was your win today, Mom? Like your biggest win. And I think it's important when we're talking about gratitudes and wins and victories, whatever word you want to call it, is to identify the why and the feeling. Like, why did it make me feel good? How do I feel in my body? Because I feel like when you can start, like if you're in a dark place and you can just go back to this book of wins, you can sink right back in to like that feeling and you can feel it again. And then going back to, I can't feel the negative when I'm focused on the positive. It's really tough to do. So we go around and you know, my husband, I mean, he's in security with the military. He does some crazy things. So his wins are off the charts sometimes. My daughter's wins are off. And like we all come from different areas, but we take the time during dinner, no matter if it's a sandwich or a salmon, we talk about our wins.
That's great.
Cool. Strategy number 1,
Yeah.
Find a gratitude practice that works for you.
So number 2 is get connected.
Okay.
You know, we talked about this, how both of us tend to go inward. So, you know, get connected with people. You know, we are social beings, you know, and outside of food, clothing, and shelter, human connection is the next basic human need.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are getting connected. You know, whether that is face-to-face, whether that is over Zoom, you can still do that. I know during the pandemic, my family lives in different parts, but we would still connect on Zoom and watch TV together, or you know what we called quarantini parties, and you know we would have dinner and drinks together.
Who did those? Come on, everyone raise your
exactly.
hand.
You know, but there are so many ways to get connected. It could even be, you know, listening to a podcast or something, but something to really get you in and get connected, because we want to again keep that energy, and we don't want to feel isolated.
Yeah.
Because the more isolated, the further
It goes deeper.
it goes deeper and deeper. Yeah. So the third strategy I know you're going to love, because this is right up your alley here. You got to move your body.
Yes.
Now, yes, that could mean going out and working out, but it could also mean just going and taking your dog for a walk, or going and shooting some hoops with your kid.
Yeah.
But, you know, energy begets energy, and you got to get those endorphins going. So, you know, you want to make sure that you are getting out there and getting your body moving.
Yes. Yeah, I obviously am going to say that's a hands down. I start my every single day, even when I'm exhausted, or if I've slept or snoozed, you know, one or too many times. I may think, I don't skip the movement. Instead, I just figure out, okay, I've got 10 minutes. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to either stretch my body, with yoga or movement or HIIT or some quick class. I think, but I want to just mention, because like in the middle of the day, it's hard to like stop and break away. And then want to go, like I'll do 5 burpees, but oh hello, then I'm all sweaty and if I've got to show up. So sometimes even just moving your space.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like if I'm tired of working in my little office in my house, all isolated, I can just go to a coffee shop and then just feel new energy.
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's
space,
that
changing
movement.
your space and your movement of, like I bet if we switched positions right now, it
would
would
be
feel a
different.
little different, right?
Exactly.
And then we use that difference to really continue that momentum on.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're 100% right. When we move our bodies, happy endorphins get to our brain, and it's a natural depressant. So when women come to me and they're like, I'm on antidepressants, my goal is to get off of it, I'm like, okay, we're moving your body. How much do you exercise? And then of course it's, well, I don't really exercise, I don't have the energy, and
Start
I'm like,
with that.
okay, we've got to exercise to get the energy, to feel the good. It's a snowball effect once
Exactly.
you exercise.
And I do want to just come completely clean with you.
Yeah.
During the day, I am not doing burpees. But what I will do is I may do a little dance party. I may put on a little Prince, a little Pat Benatar, and get some moving. But again, it's, do you, whether that's, again, just going for a quick walk, whether it's, again, moving and shifting where you're working from, if you're working from home, but again, it's getting that body moving.
Yes. So
Now,
good. Love movement.
Yeah, the fourth strategy is a little on the opposite end because we just talked about movement. But it's also important to find stillness.
Yes.
This is where that idea of rest and recovery comes in. And we'll definitely dive more into this when we do our episode on self-care. But, it's finding that moment of stillness. Going back to our brains. Our brains are a computer. And just as if I was to sit there to hit enter, 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 the computer would eventually freeze up.
Yes.
Our brains are doing the same thing. So we've got to find some stillness. It could be journaling, it could be meditating, it could, doing whatever. Sometimes what I do is, again, you can pair them together. And I had a very long day working from home. I was teaching back to back, and then I decided to go for a walk. But I didn't take anything with me. I didn't take my phone, I didn't take anything. I just went out and had the silence.
Right.
So again, and I think with women, we are so busy. Again, not everybody has 40 minutes to do a guided meditation or something, or go to yoga. But you know what? 2 minutes. We all have 2 minutes. Just turn off the noise. Turn off your computer, put your phone on do not disturb, whatever it is. Just give your brain 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
To rest.
You think it's the magic. Yeah, and I want to, because I meditate all the time, another routine that I have or a habit is, my spiritual practice in the morning. And this is after, the kids have been off and before I start the work day. And trust me, this is probably the hardest tip that women are gonna be like, stillness? You want me to relax when I'm feeling overwhelmed and behind? But that is exactly what we need to do, and you got a slow motion. So if you are trying to get into this meditation practice, right? It's not all like woo-woo-y. You don't need 40 minutes, like you said. You don't need anything crazy. I just say, just lay on the floor, get in a comfortable position, and you can either do 2 things. You can just count in your breaths, in for 3, out for 3, or my favorite is I just sit there and I bring back a memory from what brings me most relaxed. So like if I asked you, what is your happy, relaxed place? Like where would you think? The beach, yeah.
I don't even have to think about it, the beach.
The beach, she's like, take me there. Like mine is like on a hammock in Mexico. I remember this one specific instance that I just felt so at peace. And so every single time I do that, I just go into this happy and I'm like, what can I hear? What can I smell, right? Bringing in those senses, because now it becomes reality.
Absolutely.
So if you're trying to like maybe make that a part of your day, mindfulness, more, something like that could definitely help you for sure. Cool.
All right, so let's come to magic number 5 here.
Okay, magic pill.
And this is also one that can be very challenging for women. And this is to be vulnerable and ask for help. We talked about this earlier. And I think it's so important that as women, again, we are not afraid to say, I need some help. I had a moment probably about 6 months ago, and I was feeling it coming. And I remember going to my friend saying, listen, I'm having a tough time. I need to go out, because it was during a pandemic and it was around the holidays. And so, I had not been on the road training, so I was stuck in front of my computer when I'm usually on the road about 30 weeks out of the year. And I was like, I need to get out of this house. And I said, I need to get dressed. I need to put on makeup. I need to go out. And, so again, I had to do that. And she's like, all right, let's go. And so we went, and there was an outdoor mall, and so we could still practice social distancing, but it forced me to take a shower. It forced me to put on makeup and put on real clothes, and and just again, that energy. So I think we have to understand that it's okay to raise our hand and be like, all right, I'm feeling it. Because again, we're social, we got to get connected. So this is where all of these sort of feed on each other.
If we had a flag, like it would be like, raise it and just, and have that. You don't need a lot, right? I always say find your tribe. You don't need a lot. You need the core. You need someone, that is in your reality all the time if you can, whether it's a child, your partner. It's great. Like I think I know I could call you.
Absolutely.
And if I was like, I'm struggling, right? You wouldn't come at me with, why? You'd be like, tell me about it.
I'm
right?
not
Like,
calling
let's
you
just
if you
talk
tell
about
me to
it.
do burpees though. I'm not calling you for that.
Oh, y'all, I love burpees. If you haven't told, I did them today. Check it out. Anyways, I think that's important to ask for help. So know who you can ask for help that isn't going to make you feel like a big piece of crap, right?
Absolutely. So,
oh, goodness.
Wow. Well, what an amazing episode. We've covered so many topics about, being aware, looking for the warning signs, coming up with some simple strategies in under 5 minutes or less that you can do. Burnout is real. We need to start acknowledging it, and we can be stronger than burnout. So let's be able to acknowledge them and, start taking them in to be able to take us to the next level.
Yeah. So what would be maybe out of all those amazing tips, what would be your favorite burnout strategy? Like, what's your go-to strategy?
I would say the first one, the gratitude, and I think that's because that had the most impact with me. I didn't understand it. It was not something that, I never thought of myself really as a negative person. I was more of a realist. That's what we pessimists call ourselves.
Yes.
We don't want to be pessimistic.
Realists.
We're realists. But again, when I started doing that, it shifts my energy. And it really forces me to realize that, I have it pretty good. And life is good. And there are people out there that don't have those. I have a wonderful son who is healthy. I have an amazing dog, I love my house, and I love my job. If I were to win the lottery, I would still get up. But I think when we're in burnout, again, we just feel the weight of the world closing in. And so by stopping and really focusing, it stops me, and it stops that burnout from creeping in, because it's like, nope, you got it pretty good. And so it just kind of grounds me.
So you are what you choose to focus in on. And so if
What
you focus on
expands.
Which I can see that's obviously why it's your favorite, right, strategy. I think mine would, it would have to be movement. I have to go back to that. When I'm really stressed, I'll get a second workout in, not to burn a calorie. It's not about burning a calorie. It's about for me, working out, it's like my therapy. I grow strongly mentally and physically, but sometimes I'm like, I'm going to walk. Right? I'm going, it's like 4:00 and I'm like, I'm going to go hop on an elliptical right now, or I could lose it. So I have to. And I remind anyone that I talk to, I'm like, have you moved today? And they're like, well, duh, I got up from the couch and got breakfast. I'm like, no, have you moved? Have you sweated? There's magic in sweating. And it doesn't have to be bad. So we have to maybe redefine what movement looks like for you.
And I think, again, do things, like I said, have a dance party, take your dog to the dog park. It doesn't have to be a workout. So find those things, but get yourself moving. So
I love that.
Awesome.
Is there just a favorite burnout book? Because you're like, that's your thing. Is there one that you tend to say, well, this has got some good strategies?
Oh my God, there's so many great books out there. One about burnout. There's so many on habits, like Atomic Habits talks a lot about, being aware of those. I would say anything from, Brené Brown, talking about vulnerability and shame, Mel Robbins. Those are all some, great people. Robin Sharma also I talked about. And all of them have sort of, set the importance of it. So,
all around the burnout is what you're saying. Okay, they did talk about it. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you so much for tuning in for Living Real. We're so excited for you to be here. Real conversations with real women that real women like y'all need to hear, right? That's why we are here. If you please, you can catch all the episodes on the livingrealtv.com. And you guys, stay living real.